Okay, so as we're doing the exposures, and we're gonna ride up to floor 3 here just so we can have some conversation. As we're doing the exposures, as we get in, client and I are just in the elevator together, and just some of the common things, we look for the thoughts. What's the client thinking? Oh, you hear this? You hear it? Oh, as it's doing that, see, client be like, oh, this is getting ready to break, Randy. It's getting ready to break. It's getting ready to break, and we just ride through it.
Struggle got purpose and we grow. So whatever road we have to take next, all I need to know is that we'll roll with the
punches. Okay, so we're starting the morning out a little differently than we typically would. Typically I would go somewhere, go to a coffee shop. We've been to the market this week, and yesterday we went to McLean's. Great vibes, y'all. Great vibes. And I usually do that. I love doing that. But today I wanted to bring you something a little different. I was like, hey Randy, let's bring the people something a little different. Let's bring them something a little different than typically we do. So before clients, I'm headed to Johnson County Community College. And what we're gonna do is I'm gonna show you just like the very basic kind of protocol, exposure response prevention protocol for exposures of elevators. So I've worked with lots of people that have been afraid of elevators, not wanting to go in an elevator because they are afraid that the elevator would fall, but a lot of people have been afraid that they just would get trapped in the elevator. All right, and so we're going to go to Johnson County Community College and just do some basic exposure protocols to show you kind of what it's like if you're afraid of an elevator. If you were afraid of an elevator, what it would be like during an exposure session during therapy. I picked Johnson County Community College because the college is awesome. I love the college. The elevators are a little bit sketch. They're a little bit sketch. Some of them are a little bit woo woo woo, a little bit crank, a little bit cranky. They're a little bit cranky. All right, y'all. So here at the elevator, here at Johnson County Community College. So before we would ever get to the elevator, we would do a bunch of work, y'all. We'd do a bunch of work at the client's home, just preparing for this. This would not be the first session. This would not be the second session. We're probably looking at least a month or more into our work before we would ever get here. There's a lot of planning that needs to be done, and I'm just not going to go over that in the vlog. That's something that definitely is done in individual therapy. I just wanted to give you an idea that part of our work is actually going into the community and actually going to that place where people are afraid, okay, where people are afraid. So we actually would come here to the elevator with the client after we've already done our initial work in their home. It's a lot of cognitive work, so we're just kind of working on their thoughts and what they think and kind of getting a history and just kind of helping them be able to start to reframe some of those negative, distorted thoughts, maybe that the elevator is going to fall, that they're not going to be able to get out of the elevator, that they're going to be trapped. We would do all those types of things. We would talk with them about their feelings and just how they feel physically when they start to get anxious. And then before we would get here, we'd also plan out the behavioral part of actually coming to the elevator. So it's not like we just walk up to the elevator and get on the elevator, right? There's a plan, there's a hierarchy, there's a strategy of when we come here, what are we going to be doing? Part of doing the exposure, of coming here and doing the exposure to the elevator is that we've developed a hierarchy. So we've developed a hierarchy of 0 through 10. So 0 being the least anxiety, 10 being the most anxiety, okay? So what we would do is, after we've developed that hierarchy, and we would have done that in the home kind of in that initial month or so of working with a client, after we would have developed that hierarchy, we would come here and then we would follow that. So we would start with the situations that are in the 0 to 1 range, which is just very little anxiety, okay? Very little anxiety. So we'd start with the 0 and 1. And so a situation that might be 0 is just actually coming in the building, and maybe for someone, it might be just standing here, right? In the zeros and the ones this may be even too much for them to be beside the elevator without being able to see it. What we may have had to do is, in the home, we may have just needed to start talking about riding the elevator. So their SUDS, their subjective units distress scale, the SUDS, the SUDS, 0 through 10. The 0 might have been, just talking about coming to Johnson County Community College and sitting by the elevator. So that might have been just talking about it, right? So we would have to, start with that. And then at some point it might be, coming next to the elevator. So we would, this might be the next step. And then we might just kind of come over here to the bench here, and we might sit down, okay? And you would see the elevator behind me here. So we're looking directly at the elevator, and we're just sitting here, okay? And as we're doing these steps, what we're doing is we're just exposing them. So we're just sitting here, and I'm sitting here at the elevator and just staring at the elevator right now. I'm staring at the elevator, and we're just noticing thoughts. We're just noticing thoughts. The client's noticing thoughts. The client's noticing feelings in their body, okay? Noticing feelings, if it be heart, or if it would be, their breathing, or whatever it be. So they would just be noticing their thoughts and their feelings. That's what I'd be having them do. There's not much talking in this, because I just want to expose them to their thoughts and their feelings. I don't want to distract them as a therapist. I just want them to get the full experience, okay? So what we would do is we would have that exposure where we would just do that, and the goal is to have their SUDS come down by at least half. Okay, so if their SUDS is a 1 out of a 10-point scale, right, we would want their SUDS to basically go down to 0. Okay, so we would just sit here. And this might be the whole session of we're just sitting here, but we're sitting here and just looking at the elevator. And we're not talking, we're just sitting, and we're just looking at the elevator, okay? Hope is at some point the SUDS goes down. And when the SUDS goes down, and it goes down by half, that's a process called habituation, okay? Habituation. So basically the idea is, the longer you do something, you get used to it. And so naturally your thoughts and your feelings change over time, okay? And as we're just waiting it out, as we're just habituating the anxiety, as we're letting the anxiety come down, we're learning that we can work through our anxiety. Okay, so through this process, and obviously because I'm just making a short video of this, I'm really having to fast track this, but at some point on the SUD scale, and it's a process where we go from 0 and do all the zeros to 1s, and we're doing all the 1s, or we're habituating all the 1s, and we're getting to 2s. Now there may be where we just come over to the elevator like this, and we may just push the elevator button, and then we may back away. And not even get on the elevator. Like that might have been a SUDS of a 2, is just to push the button, okay? Push the button, and now the elevator comes like that, okay? and we just stand here and look at it. We just stand here and look. We just stand and look at the elevator and let the door close. All right. And we might just continue to do that. We might continue to do that. So we would continue to do that until the suds would drop to to half of what it started. So if the suds was a 2, we would want it to drop to a 1. All right. And possibly we'd love to drop to a 0. We'd love to drop to a 0. So, in a session, we may, only do 1, maybe 2 exposures because we're just habituating. We're just habituating the anxiety. I mean, it's just time that's taking, it's taking time to habituate that anxiety, okay? So eventually, again, I'm kind of fast forwarding, but eventually we're getting on the elevator, okay? And this is the behavioral part of all this that I'm telling you. And we would get on the elevator and let's just go up 1 floor. So we just ride this. We wouldn't talk as we're doing it. We're just noticing our thoughts and our feelings, Okay, we would get off the elevator. Okay, we'd get off the elevator. All right, and then what I would do is I would just sit with the client. I'd come over here, there's a bench here, and we would just talk about it. We would review the exposure. We would just review, okay, so what were your thoughts? What were your feelings? And what were your behaviors? What were you thinking when you got in that elevator? What were you thinking? What were you feeling? What were you feeling? And did you do any behaviors to avoid the anxiety while you were in the elevator? Okay. So what I would do is I would initially take the suds, and before we got on the elevator, I would take the suds and I would just say, okay, what's your suds? Tell me, 0 through 10. It's a 2. Okay. So we'd get on the elevator and then we would ride the elevator. And then as we're riding the elevator, they might just give me a little update of their suds, of what's going on. I wouldn't be talking because talking is distracting and I don't want to distract them from the anxiety. I just want them to be able to feel whatever it is. And then as we get off the elevator and we start talking and processing it, then we'll basically talk about the suds and their thoughts and their feelings. And we would just do that protocol. We would continue to do that protocol until we got to 10. And we would continue to ride. It may take days, it may take weeks, it may take months. But lots of progress and lots of success. So let's go find another one. Okay, so as we're doing the exposures, and we're gonna ride up to floor 3 here just so we can have some conversation. As we're doing the exposures, as we get in, a client and I are just in the elevator together, and just some of the common things, we look for the thoughts. What's the client thinking? Oh, you hear this? You hear it? Oh, as it's doing that, see, client be like, oh, this is getting ready to break, Randy. It's getting ready to break. It's getting ready to break, and we just ride through it. So the client would think with that noise, right? And so we would just sit with that thought. We would just sit with that thought, right? And as they start thinking things, then we're also working on their feelings, how they're feeling inside. And so their heart may be racing. They may be starting to sweat. They may have big trouble breathing. Oh, yeah, this is a ratchety one. This is a good one here. This is a good one. So we would just stay on it and continue to ride it until we felt like their suds had gone down by half. And once their suds had gone down by half, then we would go on to the next exposure. All right, y'all, that was a lot of fun. Hopefully you find something useful from it, but these types of vlogs, I haven't done many of these vlogs of like protocols and where I kind of get deep because I just am sensitive to the idea that some things that people struggle with, like a vlog like this is not going to be able to do it justice. There's just so much that goes on to prepare to even get to the elevator, but then also to process through it and work through it to a point where someone is no longer afraid of riding an elevator. That I just feel like a 10-minute vlog is just it's not A, it's not enough, and B, I just don't want people to be like, oh, okay, that's all you do, and then they're not prepared, and it actually backfires and works against them. So I've been really hesitant in the past to do these types of vlogs. Really, in the vlog, I just try to keep it very, very, very surface level with the things that I'm talking about, because really kind of in our program there are actually, we'll say four. There are 4 different levels to our program. So our first level is our least intense, and that's just social media, where we just post content and do things online, and that's really kind of our just most basic level. And then our second level is classes. We do classes every Saturday, and I haven't talked much about our classes, but we do classes every Saturday, and so that goes a little deeper into the content than I would in this vlog. So that goes a little deeper, but even in the classes, like we got CBT 101 and Anxiety 101, and we just got a lot of just introductory type of classes, introductory level, and we stay, just really under the ground, under the surface with those classes. Then our next level is the Feel Good Community, which is our community where it's just, you're in a community and you have more access, daily access to the resources and daily access to me to ask questions and things. And so we're able to even go a little deeper in that than we would classes or our vlog. And then our most in-depth, most intense is our individual therapy. And within our individual therapy, we even got levels for that. So we can go from, meeting once a week, which is our standard, to meeting multiple times a week, depending on how much someone's struggling. So I only tell you this just for you guys to get the idea, when you see this and you see kind of what I'm doing and talking about, just know that it's like on the most basic level. My hope is that you would just kind of get a sense of, oh, okay, like I need to kind of prepare my thoughts, my feelings and behaviors, and there's a system to working through, there's a protocol to working through the anxiety that I feel, and my thoughts and my behaviors. There's a system, there's a protocol to working through my anxiety, and to give you hope that there is a way to work through the anxiety. So I don't know how many of these vlogs that I'll do that are, protocols like this, just because I'm really hesitant to give you much more than just surface level stuff. So if you are struggling with fear of elevators or, specific phobias, those things, definitely consult a professional. But hope it was helpful. On track, now we going way up. W's as easy as a layup.